talking about core assets. I'm talking with Nick Rodway, CEO of Core Assets. The symbol is CC on the CSE. Nick, how are you today?
Doing great, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm doing good too. Feeling better. Cold is up, so that always makes me feel better. Let's talk about the news release that Core Assets had yesterday. So you were on my panel at MIF all the way back in May in Vancouver. That was 6 months ago. Then you guys mobilized to Silver Lime in BC, your flagship asset, I think at the end of June. You drilled for a few months till the end of August or early September. And now the assays have started to come back in. You put out news on Tuesday morning. The headline is 11.78 meters of 10.6% zinc, 0.36% copper, and 16 grams per ton gold, or silver from surface in the Whaleback Skarn area. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, we did just over 3,600 meters of drilling in the 2024 season. We were targeting a number of different things, one being some chargeability, resistivity anomalies, or isosurfaces, if you will, that came up as a part of our late 2023 IP survey. So that survey covered an area of about a strike of about 2.8 kilometers. And, obviously it came up with many anomalies because, the rock in the area is high in sulfur, it's high in metal all over the place. And, you're going to get a lot of conductivity. So we had three main anomalies that came up, and they ranged in basically chargeability from 120 millivolt per volt to, I think the lowest one was around 80 or 70. So they outlined right below areas where we sampled for the most part and got extremely high grade mineralization. So you got to remember, we've been at this now for, I guess, 3 full drilling seasons now, and 5 years of kind of groundwork all together. We're getting extremely high grade surface samples all over the place. Not uncommon to find over 1,000 gram per ton silver, even over 2,000 gram per ton silver. We're getting a gold credit in there. We get copper, zinc, and lead. So it's a polymetallic thing. There's sulfur and iron and pyrite, chalcopyrite, ore forming minerals everywhere. We subsequently drill these areas, and we also get really great results, and everything is very near surface. There's a large carbonate unit that runs through the area, and that's what's getting replaced by the sulphide, and that's why we have so much metal endowment. So this year we drilled a couple skarn occurrences, and then we also targeted these chargeability anomalies. So 4 targets in all, starting at the Sulphide City area. So we had a 450 plus meter hole there back in 2022, hole 006, and it increased with alteration, porphyry style alteration, increasing towards the bottom. We had mineralized intervals in that as well, intermittent skarn intervals, and this survey identified, a very high chargeability anomaly around 80 millivolt per volt directly beneath that. So we subsequently drilled that area. We had our deepest hole, or core length, was 800 meters, just more than 800 meters. We were in a altered porphyry unit for about 500 meters, and then we ended up going into a carbonate unit, which is where you more expect to see your massive sulfides, stringers, and veinlets. I think the best intersection from that, if I remember correctly, was an 8.7 meters of 0.17 copper, 1.2 zinc, almost 1% lead, and 10 grams silver. That was from 136 meters depth. And then another hole there had over 4% copper, 200 grams silver, and 16.7% zinc as part of the 3.87 meter intercept. So obviously still getting these highly metal endowed areas. And that is what I think is showing up on these isosurfaces for this conductivity. So, we're drilling the edges of this intrusion. This intrusion is cooking all the carbonate and intrusive rock that's in contact. And an intrusive rock is not an easy rock to replace, but yet we're getting endoskarn, which again is inside your intrusion, and exoskarn, which is more distal from your intrusion, usually in a carbonate unit. So the heat from the system is just cooking everything in its path all over this property, which is about the property is over 1,200 square kilometers, but the actual area that we're focused on here is about a 9 by 10 kilometer radius.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been blown away by the size of this project and just how extensive, the copper, silver, gold, lead, zinc endowment is across Pete, Sulphide City, Pike Valley. So you said a carbonate, unit is present near the surface, and so that was hit by fluids, I guess, from a porphyry, intrusion that injected it with sulfides at some point. What can you tell us about that, and what your theory is of is there just one porphyry here, or have there been several, events from one or more intrusions?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely has been several, but the carbonate unit is everywhere on that project, and it's folded, it's metamorphosed, and now we know that it goes down past 800 meters depth because we hit it with the drill bit and got into a limb of of this limestone. But there's porphyry dykes that are related to the Sulphide City porphyry system there, and they affect the Peats and the Jackie area as well, which is about 2.7 kilometers away. There's massive sulfide, zinc, lead, copper, gold, silver, CRDs involved in this. We got our zinc, iron, copper skarn, which is the whaleback area. That's over 250 meters at surface, and now we've drilled and connected with it over 120 meters depth. So there's at least two generations of massive sulfide and CRD mineralization happening on the project, and it could be up to 50 million years apart in time difference from these things. So with the carbonate replacement, you want to see as many generations as you can of pulses of mineralization. The complexity, which makes it harder to delineate, is actually key. And I've been preaching this, I guess, from the beginning. But the more pulses of metals, obviously, ups your metal budget, and that is why we're getting these high grade, sections or fingers that are coming out. So again, it's been proven with the drill bit, and it's been proven at surface. And obviously there's a high heat, high pressure system that's coming up in this area, and it's big, but it's like your hand. You have fingers coming off your hand, and you need to link into one of those fingers in order to track back to that hand. And with metamorphism, and all these different generations of mineralization, it takes a little while to kind of decipher everything.
So when we were in Vancouver in May, we talked about the drill program a few times. Like the goal, or at least I think the main priority, was Sulphide City, going deep, in a few holes there and seeing if you could tag into sort of like the potassic core of this system. What did you learn from the three deeper holes that you drilled in 2024? And so, like, what's your interpretation for where you are in the system in those holes?
Well, I guess I mean we've only done 13,000 meters of drilling here. Keep that in mind as well. But so every time we do drill, our map and our model changes due to the folding in the area. So I mean, one thing we've learned is that a lot of these limestone beds are doubly folded. Another thing we learned is it looks like the porphyry is dipping down to the west. That would be a big take home from some of those deeper holes we did. Again, we did an 800-meter hole and then we did I think there was around 600-meter hole, if I remember correctly. And again, it does connect to surface, to what we're seeing at surface, but things are doubly folded as you go down, and you know, the drill bit can easily deviate and go into a different carbonate unit, you know, and you could drill forever in a carbonate unit. So you gotta pull the trigger and call some of these holes um, as you can, right? So you have enough budget to continue on. I mean, the Pete's North, back to your original question, Pete's North area, which is probably about 200 meters north of the Pete's area that we drilled last year, where we got the 6.4 meters of over 5.2 ounce per ton silver, 16% zinc lead, 0.23 copper from 27 meters depth. There was a very high chargeability anomaly there. That was about 120 millivolt per volt, so it would be the highest one. We moved to that target, I believe, after Sulphide City, and we drilled 3 holes there, and we encountered some intense magnetite, basically, in some of these drill cores, which is, again, is another box you want to check for when you're looking at these porphyries. And we also did hit some pretty notable small, again, you know, skinnier vein type massive sulfide um, sulfide mineralization. Same to the south in the Pike Valley area. That was the area that was very new to us. There was no geophysical data with regards to the IP survey down there, but we saw an intrusive rock at surface that had stockwork mineralization. Same mineralization you're seeing property wide. You know, the very chunky, coarse sphalerite, zinc, and your lead, which is in your galena, and chalcopyrite, copper, a little bit of silver and gold in there as well. So we could see that at surface. We drilled it, and we did get, again, some smaller intercepts, less than a meter of higher grade copper, gold, or copper, silver, zinc, and lead. So again, it's just showing that that same genre of mineralization is present over the whole property, just in different forms.
So, you know, is the plan for 2024 to then go to the west, sort of downhill, and step out from the area that you've been focused on? I mean, at Sulphide City, at Galley, or, you know, with this good hit at Whaleback, do you focus more there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all. I guess it's all funding dependent. That would be the, you know, short answer. But yes, I mean, you go west, and there's another, you know, maybe kilometer and a half you got until the glacier comes down through the valley, and then across that glacier you have the limestone beds again with the massive high grade zinc, lead, silver, copper again. So obviously it continues over to that side as well. But yeah, a drill pad down at the foot of that hill pointing down into where we perceive again to be this porphyry would be the idea of the next season. Now there is a figure that I will drive you towards there in the news from yesterday, and that's figure 2C. So that cross section shows looking through the Sulphide City target, and it shows, kind of indicates, you know, the Sulphide City porphyry scarring system is dipping to the west, and we have an arrow there, and then we have the you know, some pictures of the massive sulfide that we've encountered, and some of the porphyry intercepts as well there.
Yeah, so figure 2C in the news from yesterday morning. So 500, so 406 meters down hole and 544 meters down hole. You're hitting copper, moly pyrite, K feldspar. And what does that tell you?
Well, I mean, it tells us that we still have mineralization, right? I mean, generally when you're drilling for these porphyry systems, you're literally coming up with nothing but alteration. That's the only thing you're driving. You're not finding mineralization. You are looking for mineralization using the alteration as a key to get there. And in our situation, we have all the mineralization. It's visible at surface, and we hit it in the drill core. And now we're just trying to vector towards where, you know, the massive part of this is. But, you know, keep in mind we have hit massive intercepts, including, the headline 12 meters of zinc with the grade that we have there, up to 12, I think 14% was the highest in that interval. But 10.6% zinc, 0.36 copper, and 16 grams per ton silver. I mean, that obviously means that there is high grade metals in this system, and they're percolating up from depth.
One thing that has really always struck me about the Silverline project is some of the chargeability values that you have is just off the charts. What have you learned from the holes that you've drilled and the chargeability values, and sort of what is the sweet spot here in terms of the chargeability values that you want to like sort of focus on?
Well, I think the main thing to learn from it is, like, I don't think that the real the number behind it, the millivolt per volt number is not necessarily that significant. It's more of like what the background is compared to that value. So I think you'll see a lot of projects, they'll have 25 and 45 kind of millivolt per volt. That's the kind of areas that they drill. Now, not all these projects have, massive sulfide like we have. It's very uncommon, especially in Canada, to have this. It's a very unique system for Canada, and that's, it's due to the presence of the carbonate. But it's not necessarily the number that you need to look at. It's sometimes on the edges of these areas where the right mineralization might be, because a rock is a compound, of course, so there's many different elements in it, and it can change, from centimeter to centimeter in the rock. It's a different. It's going to give you off a different value. So it's much different than, say, looking for a reservoir, an oil and gas reservoir, where you're looking for liquid in a void. These are a lot more complex. There's many voids within a rock, and then there can be many different minerals or compounds consisting of elements in these rocks. So there's no one size fits all, thing for these geophysical anomalies. You basically, you drill an anomaly. If you hit on it, you drill another anomaly, it looks the same, you hit again, and then if you can replicate that 3 or 4 times, then you can say it's a pretty good precursor for it. But it does take a lot of trial and error to really characterize these different deposits.
Stock Shaman, you have a question for Nick? Stock Shaman, bottom left, you have to unmute yourself. The mic button on the bottom left. There you go.
Do I have a question? No, not necessarily. I think the drill program, like you mentioned, the chargeability of that last target there, those numbers were off the hook, and sure enough, we hit massive sulfides. And I don't think a lot of people appreciate the magnitude of hitting massive sulfides. It's a rarity in our industry, and when you do, you're onto something huge. This is standard operating procedure in my mind. The market seems to be feeling otherwise, but that's why we're here. That's why we're here having this talk, to educate the market and the investors.
All right, thank you, Stock Shaman. Yeah, the massive sulfide hit is very relevant, and you guys clearly at Silverlime have a lot of near surface scarring expressions widespread across the property. There's a lot of intercepts like that, like of the 5 meters, 10 meters with 10% lead zinc with some copper and silver in there as well. I mean, just very classic, sulfide skarn. What is that telling you? And is there a thought to maybe focus in on one of these areas and try to build some tonnage there?
Yeah, I mean, like, so the area that's mineralized is so big, and we did our biggest step out first, which is so uncommon. It's the most risky thing you can do, and we came back with the highest grade zinc, lead, silver numbers I've seen in a carbonate replacement porphyry system in Canada, in many years. And we had 40 meters at the whaleback of about a percent copper equivalent altogether. That's 40 meters is 131 feet. That's a that's a very mineable width. And then within that, 10.5 meters of the 7.8 zinc, 11.78 meters of about 11% zinc, 0.36 copper, and half an ounce silver. That's almost 4% copper equivalent. And people talk about near surface. This is at surface and to depth. In Mexico, a lot of these carbonate replacement and skarns, they get mined artisanally, so you don't really need to prove them out before you start. Families just will mine them and artisanally, and eventually they'll meet with another another person underground, and then it gets to a point where they go so deep that a major will come in generally, or a company, and start mining those things. But these results are extremely significant. And I guess at the very moment, and for the past 3 years, they've kind of been getting brushed aside. So to build tonnage, now that we have, potentially, I guess, the outermost areas of this system drilled, at least in the what we call the galley, the Pete's trend. We now have our Pete's area, which had the 6.4 meter, what I call Hollywood intercept, over 17% zinc lead with the 0.3 copper and the 5.2 ounce silver. And then down at Galley, we had, I think, it was about 8 meters down there of 130 or 140 grams per ton silver, 3.5% zinc lead, 0.2 copper, again from surface. Within that, we had 1.5 meters of over 3/4 of a kilogram silver, 31% zinc lead, and 1% copper. That's 2.8 kilometers south of the Pete's. So we went almost in the middle, we'll say, probably closer to the Galley area than it is the Pete's, where again you can see the mineralization, you can see how it goes on for this 2.7 kilometers. There's no vegetation there or till or anything like that. And then we drilled this whaleback area, which is visible for 250 meters before it dips down underneath. And we got the 40-meter intercept with the 11.78 within it. So not only are we seeing this zonation pattern at surface, we also can drill it at depth. And you want a wide intercept. That would be a wide intercept for massive sulfide.
Can you tell us a little bit about some comparable projects that you know of in the world where you have such extensive porphyry skarn expressions and these kinds of grades in 5 different metals?
Yeah, I don't think that there is any single deposit that you can just use as a standalone to compare this to. I don't think there's just one. But earlier in my history, I did a bit of work in Peru and whatnot, and the Peruvian area seems to really stand out for skarn and CRD porphyry type systems. So Antamina district would be one. That's in northern Peru. And then down in the southeast, there's clusters and clusters of these deposits that have been in production, are in production, and they are porphyries with skarn and CRD. And then also there's also a lot in Argentina and Chile. Back up to Canada, the Golden Triangle area has a big time metal endowment. The only thing that they're lacking compared to what we have is, the carbonate unit. That's what kind of sets us apart from that. But there are other carbonate replacement deposits in Canada. Core Mining has the Silvertip deposit. There's down in south, kind of central BC. There's Northwest Copper Corp that has Stardust. It's a different flavor and a different terrain, but there's carbonate there, so they're able to get both sides of porphyry and skarn. And then there's other companies like Western Alaska Minerals that are doing I think it's the Water Pump Creek project, which is in Alaska, so that's just to the northwest. So there are lots of different projects that are similar, but I don't think there's any single project that I've come across in literature or visiting projects that is exactly like this.
Yeah, it's an enigma. It's so different and special. By the way, I was just checking out one of the slides in your presentation. It's slide 7, showing the national border between Alaska and BC. Is part of the project, you know, across the border, or is it all in Canada?
It's all in Canada. Yeah,
Okay.
100%. It just staggers the border for multi tens of kilometers. And the other part of the whole idea here was to start producing results on the Silver Lime and the Labrador project, which we have, and then get some further funding for doing some more regional work. So you can consider 90% of the property not even looked at yet. And I would say about 50% of the property is not even regionally mapped due to glacial cover in the past. So there's many more discoveries to be made up there.
Yeah, I mean, the property package, 1,100 square kilometers, that's absolutely gargantuan. That is probably one of the biggest properties I've ever seen held by a junior. Okay, so we know we have a project that's worth more exploration, a lot more exploration. Um, if somebody handed you $4 or $5 million for next year, what do you do with it, Nick?
Yeah, so I mean, we have enough money right now to last quite a while here for just M&A or G&A and also our compilation work and all that. That's all this information. Remember, it's fresh to the investors. It's also fresh to us. So there's still going to be more news releases coming out here. We did our structural analysis there as well, so we have a way better idea of what's going on in subsurface. But anyway, $4 to $5 million, that would get us another, probably around 5,000 meters of drilling. And we do a couple deep holes. There's a couple more of these skarn CRD targets that I have been undrilled, only grab sampled with, extreme high grade silver, zinc, lead, and copper. I'd like to go back into those. And then I'd also like to go back over to the Jackie area, which is just on the other side of the mountain. It's probably about 2.7 kilometers east of the Sulphide City area. I think it's all the same system just coming up in different, finger-like structures. But we identified some pebble dykes and some breccia dykes over there that have some gold in them. The Falcon target, which is just about 200 meters north of the Jackie target. Again, we're talking about there's so many different targets here in this little area, but the Falcon target, there's grab samples there that have the 20 grams per ton gold, over 4,500 grams per ton silver, multi-percent copper. So I think that's an epithermal part of it. So again, probably pretty distal to the source, but another box you want to check, right? You want to have as many of these things as you can, and generally, with vegetation cover and till cover, you just don't get to see these things at surface. You have to drill to discover them. So yeah, we'd like to do another 5,000 meters, and we'd also go down on the west side of where we think that this porphyry is dipping, and do a couple again, deepish 500 meters to 1,000 meter holes, and see if we can link into the finger or the porphyry feeder for the system again.
Have you done any, dating of the porphyry rocks that you've drilled to just see what age they are?
Yeah, we have. So that was a kind of a more recent thing. So we actually had two theses written out of a university over in the UK, and I don't know if those theses are actually public yet, but they were concentrated on dating both the limestone, the carbonate units at Labrador and Silver Lime, and then also the intrusives in the area. But before that, there hasn't been much work proximal that's been done by the government or anything like that. So all of this work has been mainly done by Core Assets, and we're actually offering a technical session where our VPX Monica Barrington, she will be running over all of the age dates and the genesis of and the rogony of how everything is going on there, what we figured out, and that's on November 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So I think what I'll do is I'll save that question for her, and if anyone has any specific questions, they can send those to info@coreassetscorp.com, and we will answer those in that live session as well.
All right, final question, Nick. We're gonna get a little personal here, so get ready and brace yourself. I'm a crazy guy. I ask weird questions. Sometimes these aren't scripted, and nobody I speak to knows the questions ahead of time. So it's always off the cuff, and sometimes some very interesting things happen. So obviously, the last year or so for core assets has been kind of challenging for a number of reasons. And the share price is down here today, basically at 52-week lows. That can never be fun for a CEO or a shareholder. It's not fun for any of us. What sort of keeps you going and keeps you highly motivated to keep advancing this company and advancing the flagship asset?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a roller coaster of emotions, and especially when, you were a part of a project from the very beginning. You were the one that took the grab samples from the very beginning. You kind of found the idea and, spent the money, traveled up to an area to do real work, right? Which is, it's not as common anymore. A lot of people, sit behind their desk, myself included, and just research and read papers and never really, lace them up and go out in the field. But this project was created from that, so I always, think back to how much time and effort I put into it, personally. Not just my own money, but also family's money and everything else has gone into bringing this project forward. So I've not only been able to put my sweat equity into it, but I've also ponied up and put a lot of money into this into this company over the last few years, and I am very happy with all the results we've gotten. And I'm every time I read, I get people sending me projects all the time, because everyone mainly thinks that their project is the best, right? That's the way it is, and every CEO thinks that their company is undervalued. But I keep looking at different projects, with the project generation model in mind, and I just can't find anything that gets me out of bed, like this project. It's just it has all the bells and whistles and every box you would want to check and more. So I just, I keep coming back to it, and putting the emotions aside. I mean, I know that there's a huge value in this project, even without some of the results we've gotten. So you just got to keep reminding yourself, and you do go through emotional periods. But at the end of the day, you're doing everything you possibly can here. We're all trying to make money here, right? It's not just the retail investors or the institutional investors. That's why I'm doing this. Is why I work every day, is to try to make value in this company. So yeah.
Very good. Final question. So we have a technical presentation scheduled for the 28th. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's the 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and our Vice President of Exploration will be taking that over. Any questions we'd like to send prior, just for organizational purposes. And again, you can find the email on the website, but it's info@coreassetscorp.com, and we'll make sure that we list off each question. And again, this will be a technical session, not a higher level PowerPoint.
It's a complicated project, so it needs its own technical session to really dive deep into the details here, because it's very important to understand those key details of Silverline. Nick Rodway, CEO of Core Assets. Thank you very much for your time, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This will be up on Goldfinger Capital on YouTube tomorrow.